Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Want extraordinary results for your business? Try a little gratitude with our guest, Chester Elton. Chester, welcome to our show.
Bill, delighted to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
This is exciting for me because, as I said to you before the show, once I looked at your book, just the first few pages, it made me feel so good. I knew this was going to be something, not only am I going to enjoy the book, but the interview. So this is going to be a lot of fun today. So you can impress our audience the way you impressed me. Could you tell us the opening story? You talk about a CEO in your book. I think his name is Gary Ridge. Would you tell us that story?
You know, Gary Ridge, and we've actually become great and dear friends. He's a wonderful leader. He's just a wonderful guy. And by the way, look him up. Gary is spelled with 2 R's, so it's easy to find him, Gary Ridge. He's the CEO of WD-40, and he took over about 12 years ago. And at the time, his company was about a $280 million company. And in the middle of the last recession, he started to visit his various, research plants and offices around the world. And people kept asking him the same question. They'd say, "Gary, are you okay?" And he'd say, "Yeah, I'm fine." And he kept coming up again and again. So finally he called his wife and he said, "Honey, do I give off like an unwell vibe? Like, do I look sick? Do I look ill?" And she said, "Gary, they're not asking, are you okay? They're asking, are we okay as a company?" And he said, that's when it dawned on me. He said, everywhere they're going, they're getting bad news. They're hearing the horror stories of being laid off or going bankrupt. He said, I decided that when they come to work at WD-40, they're going to hear the good news. And he said, it occurred to me to not waste a good crisis. I love that line.
Yes. That should be a T-shirt that you put out.
Exactly. And he said, we told everybody, look, we're financially solid. We're not going to lay people off because of the recession. We're not going to be hiring all that much. We're going to invest in you. We're going to invest in new products and services. They had their best year ever, and they've literally gone from a $280 million company to a $2.8 billion company in the following 10 years. They've increased like 30% a year for 10 years in a row. And he attributes it to the fact that in the crisis, they took the opportunity to be the good news and invest in their people and express gratitude for the people that showed up every day and worked hard every day. Isn't that a great story?
It's not only a great story, but I think anybody who owns stock is going to send this little squib from the show to the company they own and say, please do this. In 10 years, I'll be richer than Amazon or Starbucks. I'll be very happy. You'll be very happy. And by the way, it doesn't cost you anything. It's just a little gratitude.
Exactly.
How does gratitude create feelings of belonging? How does that work?
Well, it's really interesting, Bill. I think particularly now that there's this fear that I'll be forgotten. I'm working from home now. We've got a big team. I'm maybe, teaching my kids that we're homeschooling on Zoom or whatever it is. And there's this feeling that you'll be forgotten. And there's nothing worse than that, right? Indifference. And so simple expressions of gratitude, checking in with people. I love the leaders that take a few minutes every day and call somebody on the team and say, how are you doing today? Because with the virus and the protests and the cicadas are coming out this year, it's like the year of plagues, right? It is those simple connections that I'm remembered, those simple expressions of gratitude. Hey, I really appreciate through all of this, you show up every day. Find little milestones along the way to celebrate. Those make people feel included, remembered, and valued. And that's why I think it's always important, probably now more than ever.
I'm just thinking for you, it seems so simple. You should probably put out 2 programs, one where you charge whatever your usual rate is, and another one 10 times the rate. And just like, the Ginzu knife or whatever they sell on late night TV, if they say it's $129, we automatically think it's better. If it's $9.95, it can't be that good. So you would probably do 3 seminars a year, retire, have the mansion in Hawaii, and all the things we all look for.
Well, Bill, from your lips to God's ears, I hope that happens.
I hope so, and I hope you'll invite me over. And just remember, it was an idea that I put out there during the show. You mentioned in your book that gratitude is one of the most misunderstood and misapplied tools of management. Why is that? Again, it seems so simple. Didn't we learn that in grade school?
It is. I tell people, look, this isn't anything your mom and dad didn't teach you when you were 5 years old, right? Remember to say please and thank you. Clean up after yourself. Don't push, don't hit, don't bite. Still good advice, right? Particularly
Absolutely.
It's misunderstood. And in the book, we started the book off with debunking the myths around gratitude. A lot of leaders say, look, if I express a lot of gratitude, I'll come across as being soft. People would take advantage of me. They'll expect a raise. They'll expect a promotion. And we got to interview some of the most interesting people around this that practiced gratitude deeply where they work as well as in their personal lives, which I hope we get to. One guy that I got to spend some time with, and I'm a long-suffering Jets fan. I don't know.
Here we go.
I don't know who your football team is. I always laugh and I say, I'm a Jets fan because I'll admit it.
Okay.
And it was Chad Pennington, the Jets quarterback, who's gone on to be a very successful entrepreneur. And he said, gratitude is one of those misunderstood things because leaders think that people will think less of them because they're soft. He said, great leaders don't think less of themselves. They think of themselves less. And I thought that was brilliant,
You must have a T-shirt company in the back room that makes those signs that I get in the mail, etc. Do you want these? Because you've already said a few, and I'm looking at my notes. There's a few more coming up, so I think you should branch out when we're finished with this interview.
Right. Well, my point is this: is that there is this myth out there that this is a nice to have soft skill, when in reality, look, we've got a database of over 1 million engagement surveys, 80,000 of our own, what motivates me, motivation assessments. And it's not a soft skill. It's not a nice to have. It's absolutely a hard skill, and it's absolutely a must have. Another one of the myths out there is that it takes too much time. And yet when we looked at the best leaders, we studied Alan Mulally that saved the Ford Motor Company, Ken Chenault that took American Express to all-time highs, is that in a 50-hour work week, they were spending about an hour a week in expressions of gratitude. It doesn't take a lot of time. It doesn't cost really any money, and yet good leaders do it sometime. Extraordinary leaders do it all the time.
Another, I wish I'm sitting here. I've got so many things going that I had another pencil just to write down what you're saying, but I'm going to play the interview back later and just do that, steal all your good sayings. What about, Chester, what about people who, they say, well, wait, I'm not the CEO, I'm not running the company, I'm kind of on the other end at the bottom of the pyramid. Does this work for anybody at any point in their career?
It really does. We want to be around good people. Gratitude attracts gratitude. It really does. And clearly, when you're the leader, you can set the tone and the culture. Top down is always easier. The fact is that we all have our own personal brand. We all have our own personal culture. And so at whatever level, you can be gracious, you can be kind, you can be patient, you can have expressions of gratitude. It's not just the boss whose responsibility it is to reach out and get people. We talk about in expressing gratitude, when it becomes peer-to-peer, that's when you get a great culture, right? It's not just top-down. So, expressing gratitude for someone in another department that helped you out, a coworker that worked on you with a project or filled in for you because you had something come up with your family and so on. Those simple expressions of gratitude at whatever level really become more valued. When you think in the sports metaphors, the awards that the players, I think, value the most are the ones that are voted on by the players, not by the press, not even by the fans. Because as coworkers and as players, we know what you go through every day. So when you get a little thank you note or a little text or a little Zoom time with a coworker that says, man, Bill, I just really appreciate you putting in the extra time. I really appreciated you stepping up and helping me out. Those expressions of gratitude, I think, are even more meaningful. So the answer is yes. At every level, gratitude is valued.
And again, Chester, because I like your saying so much, I've written them all over my notes. You actually say a lack of gratitude is a form of stupidity.
It really is. And we say that, to be a little provocative, and we hope it is that, these myths of I don't have time, people will take advantage of me, it won't come across as genuine, or people need too much praise these days. They're just founded in, a lack of data, of knowledge, and ignorance. that somehow, and we see this, by the way, Bill, in a lot of new leaders, that they really feel like they've got to be right about everything, that they've got to be the smartest person in the room. Simple expressions of gratitude show a certain vulnerability. I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room because I got a lot of smart people in the room with me. Help me out. So yeah, it is stupid to extract that and to be beating people down. We always say, look, more carrots, less sticks. You'll get better results. That's where the ignorance comes from. I've got to be the smartest person in the room. I've got to be demanding. And by the way, the numbers are shocking on this. So we asked people, we said, look, would you work harder and give it extra effort if you felt like your job was being threatened? And about 30% said yes. About another third said they would work harder with a manager that was really demanding, and really brought out the fear of God in people. So say, okay, about 30%, about 33%. Then we asked, would you work harder if your leader, manager, supervisor, expressed simple expressions of gratitude on a regular basis? 83% said yes. So, pick your number, 30, 33, or 83. And, if you've got a brain in your head, you're going to go with gratitude.
Absolutely. Chester, at this point in the show, we just want to remind our listeners that you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Today, our guest is Chester Elton. He's the author of the book, Leading with Gratitude. Chester, we're going to ask you, is there a website where we can find out more, and where can we get the book?
You can get the book online anywhere, and hopefully as bookstores start to open up again, you'll see it there as well. We've got a wonderful landing page. It's leadingwithgratitudebook.com. There's all kinds of free downloads. You can download the foreword written by our good friend Marshall Goldsmith. You can even download the first chapter for free. So take a sample, and if you like it, then you can buy it at Books A Million. You can buy it at barnesandnoble.com, Amazon, anywhere fine books are sold. So thank you for that. We also have a wonderful training company at thecultureworks.com with all kinds of wonderful things. You can sign up for our newsletter, all kinds of things you can do to become a better leader and more successful.
And I will tell our audience, as soon as I started reading your book, and I think I said it to you before the show, I felt great. It's just one of those books that you realize, A, you can be part of this. You can bring it into a small dental office or a 10,000 person company or a 50 person law firm. You can make a big difference, and someone's all of a sudden going to look and say, why is Chester so popular? Why does everybody kind of boost him up? No, I mean, seriously, that's what we all want. But not only popularity, the fact that they admire you, they follow you, and they're going to listen to the advice you give us. And hey, what can be better than that? Okay. Can you tell us some of the metrics that might impress us? Because even reading your book, I picked up on some of the math that you threw in there, the profitability, the customer service. How does this affect, I would say the outlook? If someone says, look, I just want to know numbers, I'm that accountant mentality. Will it help us in terms of profitability, retention?
Absolutely, it does. And the numbers really are stunning. The return on equity is 2 to 3 times higher. And this is, by the way, studies done by our good friends at Willis Towers Watson. They've got a massive database of what does an engaged culture look like? What does a culture of gratitude look like? And when those numbers are higher, the return on equity is 2 to 3 times higher. Where it's really fascinating is in the customer service scores and customer loyalty scores. They can be 20 times higher. So it's really interesting. And I'll give you, and this is not in the book, Bill, I'll give you a real-time case study that we're working on right now that is fascinating. I don't know if you've ever eaten in a Texas Roadhouse restaurant. Does that ring a bell for you?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great culture. It's a great restaurant, and it's all about a party every night. There's peanuts on the floor, the fresh baked rolls, the fall off the bone ribs, the ice cold margaritas, and every kind of beer you can imagine on tap. Music.
You see the big smile? You see my smile?
Yeah, there you go, right? Now, here's what happened. Of course, the virus hits, and their takeaway business was maybe 5 to 7% of their total revenues. And by the way, they have 600 restaurants across the country. They have almost 70,000 employees. So now, all of a sudden, you've got to shutter all those restaurants, and it's got to be 100% takeaway. And the restaurant industry laid off just over 3 million workers. Okay, so now you've got 600 restaurants, 70,000 employees. They didn't lay off one person. The founder, Kent Taylor, who's now the president and CEO, gave up his over $1 million a year salary, put it in the employee relief fund. They didn't take a penny from the government. And in 4 weeks, they shifted to 100% takeaway. And then in 4 weeks, they were profitable. In fact, in April, they paid their people bonuses. They called it April Love. Now the restaurants are opening up. Their revenue continues to go up and up and up. People love the culture, and here's why. Kent Taylor has always put his employees first. Now, if you work at Texas Roadhouse, you're a roadie. Right? You gotta love it. I'm a roadie. He puts the first thing he said is, how can we protect our people? How can we keep them safe? How can we keep them employed? Secondly, how can we best serve our customers and our communities? So one of the things that came out, and by the way, you'd love to talk to Kent. He's just a real down-home, good guy from Louisville, Kentucky, right?
I hope our producer's listening, because that's a guest I want on in the future. So we're going to take your advice and try to get him on.
You got it. Well, here's what's really interesting. He said, when things get hard, I talk to my crazies first, because they're the guys that are thinking outside the box already. They're my big dogs. And then I've got my, my restaurant, managers that are, more rule followers. And those are my puppies on the porch. He says, I take my big dogs and I pair them with my puppies, and then we dive forward. One of the ideas that came up that was phenomenally successful that they never would have considered before. Kent goes into a grocery store, and he sees that there's not much meat. It's all selling out. And he says, well, listen, we got reserves of steaks and ribs and chicken. He said, I'll tell you what. One of his restaurant guys said, you know what? We're going to do a Saturday farmer's market in our parking lot. And we're going to go curb to grill. We're going to sell you just like a butcher shop. And they sold it below market value. So you could get hand-cut sirloin steaks for like $4, $6.
Why didn't I interview you weeks ago? Oh, my gosh.
And you know what? This guy in North Carolina, it was early when everybody was just locked down. They had people wait in line for 4 hours to drive by and pick up their meat. He said, it wasn't just my best day in the virus. It was the best day in the history of this restaurant, the revenues. He says, the police came and said, look, you got to give us a heads up next time you do this, because you're backing up traffic on the highway.
Oh my gosh. And again, I love how this brings it out, and how the people, and of course, many similar businesses we have on our show. We had someone on this week with a supermarket, and he told how he put his employees first. He actually gave them all hourly bonus money for working through the pandemic, putting themselves at somewhat of a risk and taking care of the customers. And to me, you just have to love a leader like that. If you know they have your back once, you know they're going to be there, and unless there's Martians or we explode, and that could happen next, they're going to be out there doing their best for you, and just have to be so impressed.
Yep, they couldn't wait to come back to work. They literally couldn't wait to come back to work. You love it. And to your point, he's been doing this for 20 years. He had a bank of goodwill that was extraordinary.
Now I can use that as an excuse when I tell my wife why I want to go into the Texas Roadhouse, that the guy is just so good, I've got to give them my business, and I get some of those good steaks. So you've given me a great excuse along with everything else today. Chester, one of the things that in reading your book really stayed with me, you mentioned about employee retention and gratitude. And you made such an obvious but good point. You said when employees start leaving, it's not the slackers at the bottom of the list who leave. It's the good people on the top. And of course, it's very expensive for a business between recruiting, training, bringing someone in, having someone away to get them on board. So just as something we would probably miss or be down the line, if for no other reason, just that gratitude alone, if we can keep the best employees, why should we have to go out to headhunters, pay big money to get these people in? We already have them. Just be nice to them. Am I missing something?
It really is that simple, Bill. It really is. We don't leave companies that we love. And by the way, we don't love the company. I mean, we can love the culture in the company. We love our immediate supervisor. The number one reason people leave a job is the relationship with the immediate supervisor. And one of the number one reasons people leave a job because of the supervisor is a lack of gratitude, a lack of appreciation. I didn't feel valued in my work. My voice was not heard. Now, Amy Edmondson at the Harvard School of Business has done some wonderful work around psychological safety. Do I feel safe at work? Physically, now we talk a lot about that, gloves, masks, goggles, and so on. Do I feel safe, psychologically? Like, is it okay to speak up? Is it okay to come up with a crazy idea and I won't be laughed out of the room? Well, nothing creates a culture of psychological safety, like gratitude. Thank you for your suggestion. Really appreciate you speaking up. Look, we don't have all the answers here. Collectively, we can be Einstein, right? And those kinds of simple expressions of gratitude make it safe for people to be innovative, to ideate, to maybe step out of their comfort zone a little bit. And when you're in a culture like that, why would you ever leave? Why would I leave for 50 cents more an hour?
Exactly.
Or a 3% raise?
Oh, that's what hit me so much when you said that. And about who are the ones who leave? You want to keep the good ones. It's not the slackers you're looking to keep, and they're going to say you're going to lose the good ones if you don't. Just before we move on, again, I want our audience to know that they're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, but the main man today is Chester Elton. He's the author of the book, Leading with Gratitude. And Chester, again, I'm going to ask you if you tell us about that website, because anybody who doesn't go to it, they don't want profit. So maybe they want to be out of business or, be on the unemployment line. But give us that website that we should look at and where we can get your book.
You're great. You're great. It's leadingwithgratitudebook.com. And our training company is thecultureworks.com, because when your culture works well, everything else works a little better.
And it just makes so much sense. And as an older person who does business shows, when I go into a business, I look for the culture. Is Ethel still behind the desk? If there's a new person on the reception desk every 2 weeks, there's a little something missing there. But if I see the same people, more or less in the same positions, they're not leaving. There must be something good. Either they're very smart or very stupid, and I tend to believe they're very smart people. They know they have something good. It's a good business. And, of course, if the business has been 10 or 20 years in the same place, they're doing something right as a group. What are some of the myths that you've come across that hold leaders back from taking this gratitude step?
Well, one of them is that people need too much gratitude these days, especially the younger generation. They want a brass band every time they show up to work. And it's really not founded in anything. In fact, people that are looking for more expressions of gratitude are looking for coaching. They want to know, am I on the right track? Am I doing what you expect me to do? They actually have a very high self-esteem and tend to be fairly smart. So this idea that people need too much gratitude is one that really bothers me. One is that I won't be good at it. It'll come across as disingenuous. And I do a lot of executive coaching as well. And I say, well, of course you're not going to be good at it. You just started. When was the last time you started something and you were immediately excellent, right? So we say, do it now, do it often, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. To your point about, appreciating people for retention, I always laugh at leaders, say, well, why don't you do it more often? They say, well, I'm praising Bill so much that Sean feels left out. I said, well,
that's
why?
okay. Keep praising Bill. Don't worry about Sean.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's interesting. I said, so you don't have time to praise Bill. I don't have time is one of the other myths, right? I said, because he's doing a good job. When Bill makes a mistake, how much time you got for him now? Say, oh, I'm on that in a New York minute, right? Say, well, you got to flip that around. And the more that you spend, reinforcing the good behavior and the good tactics and customer service with Bill, the less likely he is to make mistakes. So, those kinds of myths, you can turn them around very quickly. And we had a lot of fun debunking those.
Do you find, is there one reason that comes out of the pile all the time that you go to imagine and say, do this, and he or she says to you, oh, it's either not me or I've never done it, they'll think I'm a phony, or is there something that just keeps coming out that you see as an excuse, let's call it?
Yeah, the one that most people use is the go-to excuse is, I would do more if I had the time. We're doing hard things here. We're checking the boxes. And it is really interesting. Again, I go back to what I mentioned before. It's an hour a week for most managers who really do it well, right? Two words that I love to coach people on and say, look, you have to be intentional and you have to be disciplined. Be intentional in that you're going to set time aside. We have a wonderful leader in Dallas, Texas, Carlos Aguilera, works for Avis Budget Rental Car. One of the disciplines that he set up, he puts 10 pennies in his left pocket every day. And he sets a goal to have 10 positive interactions with his people. And the way he keeps track is he moves a penny from his left pocket to his right pocket. Very intentional, very disciplined. And when you look at the measure of the people that work with and for Carlos Aguilera, he is top of the charts in retention, engagement, productivity, customer loyalty, and customer satisfaction. And we talked to him. I said, of all the things you do, what has been the one thing that has had the biggest impact? He said, no doubt about it, 10 pennies.
And there again, it almost sounds like the title of a book, The 10 Penny Principle. It's so simple. I mean, obviously it costs him nothing. He's moving pennies from but by the end of the day, he knows if he did it 6 times, 8 times, or if he forgot, maybe he just had an emergency, or, as many leaders putting out fires all day. So many of the ideas we get on this show, and you've had about 8 of them today, so I think you're the league leader. They're so simple, and they don't cost a business. And all they have to do, especially with what you're promoting, is a little gratitude. Now, can you tell us, when you give a seminar, when you talk to people, etc., are there a list of best practices that you would say if you were coming into my law office, accounting firm, restaurant, what are some of the things that we could really start with and get going?
Yeah, in fact, we talk about the 8 best practices of leaders for extraordinary business results, and we broke them up into 4 and 4. Seeing and then expressing. We're just at the tip of the iceberg here. I really hope that the listeners will go out and get the book. It is the roadmap to a culture of gratitude and profitability and really extraordinary results. I'll pull out a couple on the seeing side. One is to walk in your employees' shoes. I mean, know what it is they do so that you're not making ridiculous demands on them. One of my favorites is to assume positive intent. Hubert Joly was one of the guys we interviewed for the book. He took Best Buy from $1 billion deficit to $1 billion surplus. And we said, how did you do that? And he said, well, we made work meaningful. He said, look, I may be naive. I just assume that most people come to work wanting to do a good job. And in trying to do a good job, they make mistakes. And you know what? That's okay. Again, psychologically safe to admit that you made a mistake, fix the mistake, and move on. Assume positive intent. And I think particularly now, there are so many demands on us. We're homeschooling. We're taking care of an aged parent. Maybe we've got a spouse that's got asthma. We're worried about, do we have enough food? Do we worry about, our company, our jobs, our paying our mortgages, paying our rents. There's a lot going on for people. When you assume positive intent and you give people that break, it goes a long way. And just checking in, how are you doing today? Because I'm like everybody else, we talked about news feeds before the show. 90% of what you get in your news feed is negative. Like if you're remotely suicidal, do not go to your news feed. It will not help you, right? So be the good news, right? Be that good news. How are you doing today? And how can I help? Tell me what's going on. Do you need a better internet connection? Do you need to shift your hours a little bit because of the way you're homeschooling or taking care of an aged parent? Assume that people really do want a good job. And you know what? 999 times out of 1,000, you're going to be right. Then on the expressing side, I love about make it personal. Know your people well enough so that when you express that gratitude, it's meaningful to them.
Chester, I have to tell you, I get excited about all my guests. I expect a good show. This one far exceeded it. And really, thank you so much. Anytime you want to come back, just say free pass. Here it is. We know Chester Elton. The book is called Leading with Gratitude, and I want our audience to know your last name is Elton. Hope I'm correct.
Just like Elton
John.
And
easy book, Leading with Gratitude. As you said, the stores are all open, so you can get in there now and get it, or go to Amazon, etc., wherever. And real quick, just give us that website once again.
It's leadingwithgratitudebook.com and thecultureworks.com. Last thing really quick, my favorite data point. When you're happy and engaged and motivated at work, you're 150% more likely to be happy and engaged in your personal lives. Send people home happy. The ripple effect to their families and their communities is immeasurable. Lead with gratitude. A great way to lead, better way to live.
To our audience, you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.